Last time, we ended off with Kakarot becoming the Super Saiyan of Legend and taking down Frieza. From there, they revived everyone that was killed, including the Namek, since that was the only way he could negotiate using the Dragon Balls with Namek. However, there was a threat on its way to Earth, as King Cold sent Cooler to the Earth to avenge the death of his brother. So, he left for Earth immediately. It takes him almost 2 years to get there, so he arrives on Earth around the same time that Mecha Frieza and King Cold did in the main timeline, which is age 764. In the last 2 years, Kakarot would have been training to be able to transform into Super Saiyan again while also training the other Saiyans to unlock this form as well. Raz would have likely been the first to achieve this form, since he was more willing to listen to Kakarot in his training than Vegeta and Nappa were, since they still view Kakarot as a low-class warrior. Vegeta would have achieved this form next, then finally Nappa. As for Xiaoji, he would be on the verge of getting it, but he hasn't quite been able to reach the form yet. It would be like how Gohan tapped into Super Saiyan 2 in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, but only for a couple of seconds. Though obviously with Xiaoji only barely tapping into Super Saiyan, not Super Saiyan 2, since none of them can reach Super Saiyan 2 yet. Also, as we reach this point in the timeline, something worth mentioning is that I will no longer be bringing up power levels, just power scaling every now and again. Also, in the last 2 years, everyone in their group would have wished for immortality by using the Namekian and Earth Dragon Balls. They were only able to convince the Namekians to let them use their Dragon Balls again, since they defeated Frieza and promised to protect them again, in case something ever happens to their planet again. Which, I know this sounds like a not evil thing to do, but most characters in Dragon Ball aren't 100% good or evil, sometimes they can be morally grey. Regardless, they would have expected that King Cold and Cooler would have been on their way, so they would have been training intensely for the day they arrive. Once the two tyrants get to Earth, the heroes would have sensed them coming. Even though they are evil, I say heroes because they are still the protagonists. So if you hear me say heroes going forward, that's why, and that's who I'm referring to. Anyway, they fly to where they sense the energy, and they wait for Cold's and Cooler ships to land. Once they do, as usual, King Cold would send out the regular weak level goons first, though Saiyans would easily be able to take out these goons no issue. Even Yurine would be able to take them out on their own if it came to it. Though, after these goons are swiftly killed, Cooler would send out his armored squadron. From what we have seen of them in the movie, Piccolo was able to take them out easily, and he was weaker than the Saiyans, so, theoretically, they would stand no chance against the Saiyans in their base form and would be swiftly killed. From here, this is where the main fight starts with King Cold and Cooler. We never get confirmation about whether King Cold can or can't transform, but I'm going to go with the theory that he can. Anyway, Cooler steps up first to take on the Saiyans, and Vegeta would step up as well. Kakarot got the privilege of taking down Frieza, so he wouldn't want to give up the opportunity of taking down another one of these tyrants. Assuming things go like the Cooler movie, and Vegeta is in his base form fighting Cooler, who is in his fourth form, he would be losing against Cooler. Goku is only able to match him in his fourth form because of the Kaioken, and none of them have it, so Vegeta has to transform to a Super Saiyan, which, him transforming into a Super Saiyan basically turns the fight completely around, as he would now be pummeling Cooler, though Cooler eventually mentions that he has one more transformation, and since Vegeta is still cocky about being able to defeat Cooler, he would allow him to transform, so Cooler does so, and turns into his fifth form, though, assuming things stay like they did in the movie, Cooler is still outclassed when he is in this form. However, he still does resort to using his supernova to try and kill Vegeta, but he's able to send it back at Cooler with his Gallic gun. This still sends Cooler into the sun where he is seemingly killed, but this time around I'm going to say he is actually killed. Mainly I said this because they would be slightly stronger compared to Goku in that movie, and because I didn't plan to write Meta Cooler into this timeline. Maybe in the future I'll considering running a off timeline where the movies happened, but as of now I have no plans for it. So, with Cooler dead, King Cold would obviously be disappointed in his son, though, unlike what he did with Future Trunks killing Mecha Frieza, he doesn't have anything to blame it on that allowed Vegeta to win, since he didn't use the sword like Future Trunks did. Anyway, at this point, King Cold steps in to face Vegeta, with the Saiyan Prince still being cocky that he can win this. With King Cold being in his second form, Vegeta is still dominating in this fight. After a while pummeling the tyrant, Vegeta would start to goad the king into transforming, as he figures he can as well. This is when King Cold transforms into his third form, but unfortunately for the Monarch, this doesn't help much. It closes the gap in their power a little, but not enough to matter. So, what finally turns the tide in the favor of the Monarch is when he transforms into his fourth form. At this point, Vegeta would be the one getting dominated, though He will still be able to get some small hits in every now and again, so he isn't completely outclassed. As much as the prince hates it, he needed help, so he allows one of the other Saiyans to step in, which, out of all of the Saiyans, Nappa is the one to step in and help him. He's been beside Vegeta all his life, so he would kind of see it as a duty to still help the prince out, even now. Once Nappa comes in to help, his base power wouldn't change the tide all that much. It would just be a minor annoyance to the king. That is, up until the point that Nappa transforms to a Super Saiyan as well. With the two Super Saiyans fighting the Monarch, he's basically being cornered. When he focuses on trying to hit one of the two Saiyans, the other one hits the Tyrant, so he's basically being pummeled and can't get any hits of his own in. These two would still be cocky, so when Cold says he has one last transformation, they would allow him to turn into it. Cold never expected to be pushed this far, as in his whole lifetime he has never had to transform to his fifth and final form. Regardless, he starts the process of transforming. Then, when he eventually finishes, he's even more massive than his son Cooler was in his fifth form, though, shockingly enough, with his size he wasn't slowed down at all, he actually got faster too. Regardless, both the Saiyan Prince and Nappa don't stand a chance at this point, and Cold is basically mopping the floor with the two Saiyans. Even when Rapid steps in and transforms into a Super Saiyan to fight the Monarch, it doesn't help much. Though it does remind the three Saiyans of old times trying to take planets down together, but the three don't stand much of a chance against him. Even with Raz's help, they are catching up to the Tyrant and getting some hits in, but not enough to matter. Though, in cases like these, I guess getting some blows in is better than getting none in at all. So, last but not least of the four warriors, Kakarot steps in to help as well. Finally, when he transforms to a Super Saiyan, they do start to overwhelm the Tyrant, but only slightly. They are mainly only overwhelming him because he is having difficulty keeping track of the four of them at once. As the fight continues to drag on though, they realize Cold isn't getting tired out or anything. If the fight keeps going on like this, they will be the ones that get tired out against him. So, their plan is to put everything they have into a blast together to try and get rid of the Monarch. When they get the opening, they kick him up into the air and start to charge their respective blasts. Vegeta would use his Galley Gun again, Nappa would use his Break Cannon, Raditz uses his Double Sunday, and Kakarot uses the Super Kamehameha. Even Yuri and Xiaoji decide to step in for the Joint Blast, with them both using the explosive Demon Wave. King Cold would be cocky about this at first, and just charge a Supernova to counteract it, which, unfortunately for the heroes, the Supernova would start to push back their combined blasts. As her blast gets closer to them, they try to use her full power, but it doesn't change much. This is the moment I believe would be the catalyst for Xiaoji to become a Super Saiyan for the first time, since, if he doesn't, his parents, his uncle, the others in his group, and his home planet are all going to be destroyed by one of the tyrants that have terrorized his race for decades. He was also kind of caught up in the moment and forgot they can't die because of their immortality. Regardless, this is the turning point for the heroes, as with this extra boost of power, they are able to push back King Cold's Supernova, which, at it being pushed back far enough, it hits the tyrant. The combined power of his own Supernova and the combined blast of the heroes kills the tyrant, thus ending out the Cold family once and for all. While you're probably thinking about if a warrior from the future comes back, I believe one does, but he waited to show themselves until after this fight. The main reason for this is because the future warrior is future Xiaoji, so he would know to wait after this fight, since his past self's transformation to Super Saiyan still happened. The main thing he must warn them about is the android attack, so they can be prepared for it. I'll go into more detail with the future timeline in another part, but the heroes still do die in that timeline because their immortality was wished away, and he was the only survivor of the Saiyans. Also, future Xiaoji does give Kakarot the Heart Virus cure, just in case their immortality is wished away somehow. I said just in case, since that's how he died in their timeline. Regardless, he warns them that in 3 years there will be 2 androids that attack, and that all of them, minus Kakarot, were killed by the androids so they need to train to defeat them. After that, future Xiaoji says he'll come back in 3 years, and leaves to go back with his time machine. Also, I guess something to mention here is that there would have been no reason to hide his identity, as he was already born. Even if he did try to hide his identity, I think Yuri and Kakarot would have been able to tell it is their son. After he leaves, they would go on to start their 3-year training right away, since the Saiyans have more training partners this time around, and might get stronger than they did through this time skip in the manga. Also, since they all have the Super Saiyan to start off this time skip, they would probably notice the downsides of it and start working on correcting it. Without the hyperbolic time chamber, it could take them a while to master Super Saiyan. It only took them a year to master Super Saiyan the Cell Saga, but they're weaker at this time than they were then, However, since this time skip is 3 years long, they should theoretically be able to master Super Saiyan in this time period. Also, from the dimensions that Vegeta took over the Frieza, Cooler, and Cold Empires after all the tyrants died. Since Vegeta was the previous Prince of the Saiyans, the others were fine with him claiming the throne this time. It's possible they would have been able to convince the Namekians to join the Empire, since they already had a deal in place to protect them, though they probably wouldn't help with invading planets, just potentially offer up their Dragon Balls if they needed it. Also, in taking King Cold's ship after he and Cooler arrived, since it was the more advanced one, they would have seen the planets the Frieza Force planned to go to before he was defeated. You know the planet they planned to go to right after Namek was Yardrat, since Goku got there from using one of the Ginyu Force's pods and didn't alter their destination. Also in the game Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors, Goku mentioned after going to Yardrat they were assigned to go to the planet Metamor, so it's possible that Vegeta and the other Saiyans would still go to these planets and potentially force the inhabitants there to train them and join their empire. We don't have anything saying evil people can't train in spirit control in Yardrat, so I'm just going to say it takes them longer to complete the training for instant transmission than what it took Goku to complete it. Then, as for Metamor, the obvious thing they would learn there is the fusion dance, which could be a good technique for them to have going forward. Other than that, in the newly renamed Vegeta Force, the other Saiyans would have been made his elite soldiers or generals. They would also use the Earth as their base of operations. This would probably be the best choice out of the planets they know about in running their empire. They also would have been taking the Dragon Balls from Earth and hitting them on another planet, so their immortality can't be taken away. Also, Vegeta would have his grunts send out a universe-wide broadcast for any remaining Saiyans to come join the Vegeta Force, as they had taken down the Cold family once and for all. Though, for how many Saiyans are still out there, it's hard to tell, but there are at least 3 that I can think of. However, that's where I'm going to be leaving this part for right now, since next time we will be getting into the start of the Android saga. How many Saiyans do you think will answer Vegeta's broadcast? Will his brother Tarble come out to join the Vegeta Force, or will he stay away? When the androids attack, do you think the Saiyans will stand a chance, or will their training have been in vain? Also, who is this mysterious person that wished away their immortality in the future? As always, if you want to see more, please subscribe and like this video, and comment any suggestions you want to see for what ifs down below.